Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the poem Postcard from Kashmir, composed by Agha Shahid Ali. We will first discuss some of the background aspects, followed by the overview of the poem, and lastly, the study of the text of the poem. Loss and longing are two universal emotions that are predominantly active in our human souls, especially when we find ourselves away from the places we naturally call home. While migration has significantly contributed to the richness and diversity of cultures, ethnicities, and races, it has also impacted the well-being of individuals involved, and ultimately causing the general loss of cultural norms and religious customs. Poetry serves as a great medium to address these cultural issues, and through poetry we see the concepts of cultural identity and cultural loss being explored. The poem Postcard from Kashmir by Agha Shahid Ali reveals how the poet uses the power of language and power of poetic techniques to lament his loss of the culture. The poem Postcard from Kashmir is the introductory poem of Agha Shahid Ali's anthology entitled Half-Inch Himalayas. In the poem, the poet presents his nostalgic feelings about his homeland and tells about how the poet felt when he received a postcard from the violence-ridden Kashmir, the place which he belongs to. Here the poet is reminiscent about his glorious childhood spent in Kashmir, which was once known as the paradise on earth. The narration of the poem is in first person, and the ideas expressed are subjective, so it is relevant here to understand the personal biographical aspect of the poet. Agha Shahid Ali was born in Delhi, educated in Kashmir, and later shifted to the United States and settled there later. And the rest of the life he spent there only in the United States. Though Shahid is a Kashmiri Muslim, today he is better known in the United States, and he is identified as an American poet writing in English. He is known as an eminent diasporic writer and as a poet who is exceptionally able to merge multiple ethnic influences and ideas in both traditional forms of composition and also in modern forms like in free verse. The central situation of the poem is that the speaker, who is presently living abroad, describing his reaction after having received a postcard from his native land, which is Kashmir. Kashmir, which is a region of Indian subcontinent. We Indians are very well aware about the place called Kashmir. It is the most inflammable part between India and Pakistan. And as we know, parts of Kashmir are controlled by India, Pakistan and China. And in fact, dispute between India and Pakistan about this territory are long-standing and have often led to armed conflict. Due to the dispute, many native people of this region have migrated to various parts of the world, and Shahid is one of them. Kashmir, which is known as the heaven of earth, is still there, but the natives of that land are compelled to stay away from their homeland because of the violence and bloodshed of this, which has become inseparable part of the life in Kashmir. Through this poem, the poet attempts to focus on the sentiment of the people of Kashmir. And in this way, nostalgia for the motherland may be said as the central theme of the poem. The narrator, who is an exile from Kashmir, experiences three levels of suffering: the repentance of having left his home, the denial of feelings like an outsider, and the struggle of coming to terms with the changes that would have unavoidably taken place in his absence to his native place. The internal encounter of the narrator is exposed as he looks at the postcard photograph of Kashmir, a place where he belonged to once but now exists only in his memory. As far as the structure of the poem is concerned, although the poem is written in 14 lines, but it cannot be categorized as a sonnet because it lacks the peculiar standard structure and meter and rhyme scheme of a sonnet. In order to understand the poem fully, let us discuss the text of the poem Postcard from Kashmir by Agha Shahid.
Agha Shahid Ali immortalizes his homeland in his poetry. As a diasporic writer, Kashmir, the place which he belongs to, haunts the poet's imagination. He longs to feel and talk about it in his poems, and he paints a poetic image of the faraway homeland that characterizes the Kashmir of 1990s. The speaker in the poem describes his feelings after receiving a postcard from his native land, Kashmir. He's reminiscent about his glorious time of childhood spent there. He, after receiving that postcard, is immediately transported back to the days when Kashmir had not turned into a war zone. In the opening lines of the poem, the poet indicates that Kashmir shrinks into my mailbox, my home a near 4 by 6 inches. It means the postcard that the poet has received today contains a photograph of Kashmir, a place the speaker still considers his home. This 4 by 6 inch photograph means the photograph of Kashmir in the form of Himalayas is looked at with love by the speaker, who is geographically distant from Kashmir. Means physically the poet is very, very away from his native place, his homeland Kashmir, and is presently living in one of the Western countries, but always feels a pull to his homeland, that is Kashmir. In the following lines, he further elaborates the issue. I always loved neatness. Now I hold the half-inch Himalayas in my hand. The speaker claims that he always loved neatness, a trait that was typical of Kashmir of his childhood days. But the irony of the fact is expressed by the small printed image in postcard that he holds the half-inch Himalayas in his hand now. The enormous and massive mountain range is reduced to a small, tiny picture, which is actually undesired by the poet. The huge Himalaya has turned into a tiny image, which he holds in his hand today. Although the speaker holds a postcard with the image Kashmir on it, but in reality, he is very, very far away and has lost touch with the land that he loves too much. The tone of the poem gets increasingly serious and emotional from line number 5 onwards. This is home, and this is the closest I will ever to be to home. When I return, the colors won't be so brilliant, the Jhelam's water so clean, so ultramarine, my love so overexposed. What a powerful rhetorical repetition of the word home that emphasizes poet's deep affection towards the land that he loves. The most ambiguous line of the poem is this is home, where he says, and this the closest I will ever be to home, which possibly mean the poet's inability to leave the place where he lives at present, and conclusively he has compromised that present land as his homeland. But in reality, he belongs to some other place, that is Kashmir, which is far away from him, and this is the closest that he can be ever. There is an irony in the word closest. It is saddening to know that the poet craves to go back home, but the chances to go back are so thin. It is clear that the ultimate aim of the poem is to channel the poet's unbounded patriotic love to Kashmir, the place he is proud to call it home. There is the repentance of having left his home, and also the denial of feeling like an outsider while he is living abroad. In the following lines, the poet continues to build up a bitter mood by imagining what Kashmir would be like when he returns. The poet is sad to imagine the changes that would have unavoidably taken place in his absence there. Torn by wars, Kashmir would not be so colorful, so brilliant. Bloodshed River Jhelam's water would not be so clean and ultramarine anymore. The poet craves, poet cries for his homeland. His long displacement has made his memories a little faded, but still, its recollection so pure and ultramarine that he hopes that the recent violence will not affect Kashmir's great heritage. The speaker, frightened and apprehensive that when he does actually return to Kashmir, the real sights of the place will be neither like the picture of them presented in the postcard, nor like the idealized memory of the place as the speaker has in his mind. It is clear that the ultimate aim of the poem is to express the poet's unbounded patriotic love to Kashmir, the place that he is proud to call home. The last lines are highly pathetic and a little complex, and my memory will be a little out of focus in it. A giant, negative, black and white, still undeveloped. In the closing lines, the speaker suggests that his memory of the Kashmir is unreliable and that Kashmir itself may be like a giant, negative, black and white, still undeveloped place. Giant and negative, the two adjectives help contrast the beautiful idealized Kashmir in the postcard with the giant, grim one in reality. These lines, especially the last word, still undeveloped, are highly suggestive. The last lines of the poem are filled with quite a number of commas. The structure reflects that memories are just pieces of flashbacks and feelings that tangle together. However, his memories are enchanting, but they are messy and will gradually fade. So, this is all about the text of the poem Postcard from Kashmir. Thank you.